being a big fan of racing games, I also love me a good racing wheel. The Sega Arcade Racer has always been my standby for racing games on the Saturn, but one other wheel out there brings something different to the table. This is the Madcatz analog steering wheel for the Sega Saturn. You may recognize this wheel design on plenty of other consoles from the era, and you may have even seen one at a resale shop, a Goodwill, or a dumpster behind either of those places. I see these types of wheels everywhere, but a version for the Saturn is fairly uncommon. I've only ever seen it in person once before, and they rarely pop up on eBay from time to time, usually within the $20 to $40 range. I was particularly interested in this wheel for a couple reasons. One, it has a proper high-low gear shifter on the side, and most importantly, it's got pedals! Most Saturn racing games were built with the Sega Arcade Racer in mind, which lacks pedals. So with that, let's take a look at how this wheel plays. For this, I'll be testing the wheel with 3 racing games. A good game, my favorite game, and Sega Touring Car Championship. Let's start with Daytona USA. The controls felt kinda twitchy at first, but I quickly got used to it. One thing that did bug me was how delayed hitting the brake pedal is, which brings to light the wheel's main design quirk. While the pedals are analog, no games take advantage of it. Since this wheel uses the presets for the Sega Arcade Racer, it maps the pedals to the C and Z buttons, which are typically mapped to gas and brake respectively in most racing games when it detects a wheel in use. For the most part, it works, but I found that you have to press the pedals all the way down to get the game to recognize them. It leads to some awkward footwork when trying to get some drifts off. You can still play without the use of pedals though with the front-facing buttons. Either way, the handling felt pretty solid after a few minutes, though getting used to the pedals was fairly awkward. Next up, we have Sega Rally Championship. This game posed the biggest problem right up front. The wheel seems to have an alignment issue when playing that causes my car to drift to the right. The instructions give you a quick fix for this by having you hold down A, X, and start in the neutral position. It does work, but I had to do this every time I rebooted Sega Rally. When I had that sorted, I had a lot of trouble adjusting to the handling with the racing wheel, which, in its defense, is the same problem I had with this game in the Sega Arcade Racer. After a few minutes though, I got the hang of it, and it felt great. I also took this time to try out the gear shifter. The shifter lacks any kind of tactile feel, and attempting to shift up was unresponsive at times. When you get a groove going, it really gives you a greater feel of control over your car, but its unresponsiveness kept rearing its ugly head enough times that I'd mostly stayed in automatic. Lastly, we have Sega Touring Car, which is known for having some pretty rotten controls on console. Unfortunately, this wheel does nothing to alleviate that. It's not the wheel's fault by any means, though I will say the alignment issue did happen again with this game. There's a lot of things going for and against Sega Touring Car that I really need to talk about in a longer form video of its own someday. But for now, this game won't win anyone over, no matter how you play it. The Madcatz analog steering wheel is a neat little thing, but its build quality and shoddy integration of the racing pedals end up creating more problems than improvements. It's a cool collector's piece, given how uncommon it is, but if you want some more immersive racing action for your Sega Saturn, I'd stick with the Sega Arcade Racer.